Rev up your engines!
Well, I personally think Toyota's making a big mistake. As an engineer just wrote me, Toyota's replacing almost all their 3.5-liter V6s with turbocharged 2.44 cylinders. They're using this engine in almost all of their cars. Lexus NX 350, Lexus RX 350, 2024 Toyota Tacoma, 2024 Land Cruiser, 2023 Toyota Highlander. I agree. I think it's a big mistake. Let's take a big example. Highlanders, Tacomas, etc., right? People are towing boats and stuff with them. When you put these four-cylinder turbos, they have to rev up higher. There are many purposes that you're better off with a V6 engine. But, gas mileage ratings. And of course, as we all know, it's total horse manure. If you pull any kind of weight with the Turbo 4, it's going to get horrible gas mileage compared to a 6, which has more initial torque to pull it and isn't going to use as much gasoline. The problem is, they don't tell you, well, it's at this RPM, you got to rev them up a lot higher. When you do, they get worse gas mileage, and they don't test them in the real world for the EPA rating. Rated at like 32, and they get like 24 on the highway. It's total nonsense, and that's not even towing stuff. Toyota, I think you're making a big mistake going to four-cylinder turbos and dropping your V6 engines that were notorious for running forever. Samaji says, which SUV is better to buy? I'm looking at 2023, 2024, a Honda CR-V 1.5 turbo, a Mazda CX-60 gasoline, Toyota Grand Highlander 2.4 liter 7 seats. Normally I would say Toyota, but Toyota's now going to the four-cylinder engine in the Grand Highlander, and to me it's too small for that big vehicle. In this case, I would go for the Mazda CX-60 with the gasoline 2.5 liter. I love Hondas, they make great cars, but I do not like little 1.5 turbo engines. They will not last as long. They've had some head gaskets blow on those cars. I am not a turbo fan. I would much rather have a larger 2.5 liter a nice big four-cylinder engine than a little 1.5 four-cylinder engine that's got a turbo on it. It's not going to last as long. It's got more strain in the engine. In that case, I really would go for the Mazda. Now, if you didn't mind the acceleration, Grand Highlander Toyota with a 2.4 liter, that'd be okay, but road test one first. You might think it's too slow because it's a big vehicle with a little engine for a vehicle that big. Rock and Roll 5 says, my Volkswagen won't engage until you floor it. I got an 01 Volkswagen Jet, 180,000 miles. You step on the gas, you got to rev it up, and that starts to go. You hear a clunking sound. Now, once it's warmed up, it can engage from reverse to drive with no problems. It shifts okay at stop and go. What do you think? Is this normal? Well, it's pretty much normal for a Volkswagen Jetta, but it's telling you your transmission's starting to go up. First thing in the morning, if you got to rev it real high before it kicks, your transmission is breaking down internally. It can be the torque converter, it can be the oil pump inside the transmission that pumps up the fluid, could be a whole bunch of things, right? But it is starting to go out. You say it runs okay when it's warmed up, what the heck? Those things are endless money pits as they age, and you say it shifts okay once it's warmed up. I'd say warm it up and go trade it in a CarMax or something. See what you can get for it, and then get yourself a Toyota or a Honda, because the trannies cost a fortune to rebuild on those things. They cost a small fortune. I've seen people spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 having them rebuilt. It's not worth an old car like that. So since it shifts now, get it, trade it, get rid of the stupid thing. Leapster says, I have RPM fluctuation when I drive on cruise control. I got a 2018 RDX with 60,000 miles. When I drive at 70, the RPMs fluctuate. I've noticed it while I'm idling sometimes as well. The numero uno problem that does that is a vacuum leak. If you have a vacuum leak, it's sucking air. And that screws up the computer's air-fuel ratio mix. So we'll always be trying to compensate to make it perfect. So too much air makes it lean, so then it makes it a little richer. But then it'll make it too rich, and then it has to make it a little bit lean. So it'll go back and forth, and you'll get a fluctuation in idle. So the odds are you got a vacuum leak somewhere. Watch my videos on finding engine vacuum leaks on your car. You can use carburetor cleaner, open the hood, listen to it, you hear any sucking sounds, maybe a little vacuum hose came off. That's the most common thing that's going to do that, because it happens when you're both on cruise control, but also when you idle. And of course, when you're idling, the cruise control isn't doing anything, so it can't be the cruise control system. It's got to be something with the air-fuel ratio, and a vacuum leak is what's going to do that 99% of the time. Here's an interesting one. Tesla blocked an owner of one of their cars from using their Tesla superstation to charge up her car. A woman took her car to the Tesla dealer because the key system wasn't working. They worked on the car. Then when she got it back and she went to charge it at the Tesla superstation, it wouldn't work because the workers at Tesla had reprogrammed the car not to work on a Tesla supercharger. They said that she bought the car used, and it was a salvaged car from a wreck, and it was too dangerous, that it might start on fire, so they shut it down so she couldn't charge it up. Well, to add insult to injury, the car had never been in a massive wreck. It was an fender bender, that was all. And they made a mistake on the paperwork, so without even telling her, they banned her car from using the Tesla supercharger. See, they're covering their own heinies because they know these cars are going to start on fire. So they think, any car that's been in a big wreck, maybe they didn't fix it right, so we'll ban it from our charger. So they can't plug it in our big charger and have it burn down to the ground. Because, of course, if you know anything about electricity, the superchargers use a tremendous amount of amperage. The more power that charges the battery, the more heat. If there's something wrong in a car, because it was in a wreck, maybe they didn't tighten the wires right, where it's loose, it'll build up heat, and it could start a fire, and that's probably why a bunch of them have burnt down, right? So they're trying to be proactive. Well, if your car's been in a big wreck, you can't even use our chargers now. Another brilliant advertisement for why you should not buy an electric car. They banned them, and even if the car had been in a wreck, I mean, it was working okay, they're saying, you can't use these anymore because we're afraid that's going to start on fire, right? But as I say, follow the money and use your money wisely, and do not buy an electric car as they stand today, and you won't be in the same problem as this woman when she went to plug in her car. And it wouldn't charge because Tesla had banned her because they thought the car had been in a massive wreck when it was only in a fender bender. And she had just come back from the dealer, so they should have been able to see it. Didn't have any problems, but they just saw paperwork. Car has been in massive wreck. Ban them from charging at our charger. And so they did. You want to get involved in this crap? I certainly don't. Boy, if you think you got a problem paying your monthly note on your house, guess what? In China, real estate's starting to collapse. A huge realtor in China filed for bankruptcy with $335 billion in unpaid bills when they defaulted on their debts. The company's called Evergrande. They always like giving them English names. Of course, it's a Chinese company. And interesting enough, they filed for bankruptcy in New York State because this Chinese company has a bunch of assets in the United States, right? Obviously, the American laws for bankruptcy are liberal. The corporations and all the people who run them have bought the politicians off so they can do all kinds of sleazy deals. You see all these corporations, they go bankrupt and they come. Look at Hertz. Hertz went bankrupt. The company still kept running, right? And now they're out there. They're still rolling along, right? And I'm sure all the people that they owed money to got screwed and got 10 cents on the dollar or whatever for the money that they were owed. Interesting, the Chinese company filed for bankruptcy in the United States, obviously because it has more liberal laws in New York for the rich people and their corporations, especially real estate corporations. And another Chinese company called Country Garden, it's ready to file for bankruptcy too. They're only behind $200 billion in unpaid bills, right? And here's the thing, like I said, the law's made for rich people. Listen to this, and I quote, "Finally, for Chapter 15 bankruptcy will allow the company to retain its control of assets and decision making. Business as usual, but you don't have to pay the people the money you owe them." Well, this just shows you that the Chinese real estate company, that kind of money, that it's starting to collapse in China. The real estate market is starting to go, and since they also invest in the United States, who knows what it's going to lead to? Kind of makes you wonder, real estate, how can you screw up in real estate? How you can lose $355 billion, though? Hey, you got me on that one. Check it out. This revolutionary solar tower can create jet fuel out of thin air. Now, they're using mirrors, concentrated heat and power. It pulls the carbon pollution out of the atmosphere and the water vapor in the air, and it can make kerosene eventually, right? Now, realize one thing. This mirror trick has been done a long time, and most of them have failed miserably, right? This is this new study they're coming up with. If you ever fly over Las Vegas to California, you're going to see this giant array of abandoned mirrors that were going to do the same thing, melt sodium. Theirs, I believe, was to create electricity, and it failed miserably. It cost so much money to operate it, they just shut the whole thing down. Now, this is at a facility that they're experimenting with in Spain, where they get an awful lot of sun, right? The rain in Spain is mainly on the plain, right? Now, the scientist Steinfeld has been working 15 years to get this to work. We realize one thing. Less than 2% of the carbon dioxide pollution in the world is created by airplanes. So we're talking about a very tiny amount to begin with. And this in itself is a tiny amount of the fuel that the planes actually use. For example, in 2019, the world used 95 billion gallons of jet fuel, right? And this plant can make, a few thousand, as it stands now. And we use 95 billion gallons, and that's only 2% of the carbon dioxide pollution in the world. That'll show you that these tiny little things aren't going to do diddly squats. More fun for the scientists. Oh, look, we got this nice toy in the mirrors. Look how great it works. Well, how much does it cost? Well, don't worry about the cost. Look, it can work, right? In the real world, they got to deal with cost, and that's why that big mirror system they set up in the desert between California and Las Vegas failed miserably because it can't be done economically. Plus, you need an awful lot of sun. And the mirrors are going to start breaking. They have to follow the sun, so all these mirrors, right, they have to be movable, and all that crap's going to break, right? If they couldn't even do it economically in the beginning, imagine when they get years old and they start breaking down what it's going to cost. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.